Hello everyone, my name is Madison, and today I will be sharing with you my integrated mini teaching unit lessons for Art 3309. The title of my teaching unit is Somewhere in the Midwest, and it is for the 4th grade. The picture that I chose is Tornado Over Kansas by John Stuart Curry, and it was painted in 1929. My first lesson in my unit is going to be social studies and art history. So to start the lesson, I will introduce the students to the artist and just kind of give a background about him and where he grew up. So he grew up in Kansas, so most of his paintings have the setting of Kansas in the background. Specifically in my lesson, the painting Tornado Over Kansas, it really shows how many of the families lived. They lived in fear of not knowing when a tornado would come. So I am going to use that to kind of draw in the students and introduce them to the term Tornado Alley. So that is a section in the Midwest and Southwest that has a lot of tornadoes, and from there I will talk about the 5 regions in the United States. I am going to use the 5 regions to bring in my social studies standard, and they will be able to locate the physical features of the United States, and that includes the Atlantic Coastal Plain, the Great Plains, the Continental Divide, the Gulf of Mexico, the Mississippi River, and the Great Lakes. So I'm going to use that standard and basically ask the students where are those located as far as within the 5 regions of the United States. So the objectives that the students will have, number 1, the student will be able to locate the 5 regions in the United States, and number 2, the student will also match regions to the major physical features listed in the standard. So moving on into the actual lesson, the students are going to be working in pairs, and they will complete a graphic organizer together while they're walking around the classroom. So just to make it a little bit interactive, along the walls there will be different informational text about each of the regions, and it will talk about the terrain and like any of those major physical features that are located in that region, and the students will just be asked to fill in the blanks in their graphic organizer. And once everyone walks around the room and fills in their organizer, we will come together as a class and we will then go over it to make sure that we all understand the information and know what we read and just understand it all. So the assessment that I will be giving, each student will get a blank map, and the map will already be divided out into the 5 regions, but it will not be labeled or anything like that. And the 6 major physical features will have a number and a line basically located on the map. So the students are going to be asked to color a region a certain color that corresponds to what I asked them to, and then they will use the word bank that has the physical features and basically write in where they are located on the map, just inside the blank that I gave them. My second lesson is going to be language arts and aesthetics. So to start the introduction, I'm going to introduce the painting, and I'm going to ask 3 aesthetic questions that all relate to the painting. So my first one is there a story you can gather from the artwork? Just to see what the students can see and what they're noticing about it. The second one is what emotions do you experience when you look at this? Just to get a feel for, what they're thinking whenever they look at it. And the third, what are the first words that come to mind whenever you see this? So again, just what pops in your head whenever you first look at it. So the standard that I'm going to use is they will write narratives to develop real or imagined experiences or events using effective technique, descriptive details, and clear event sequences. My 2 objectives are the student will construct an imagined story about a tornado experience. And number 2, the student will use details to develop a narrative. My lesson for language arts, the students are going to write a personal narrative about a imagined experience as if they were in a tornado. So they are acting like they are the family in the artwork, and I want them to talk about how they were feeling, what did they do, who were they with, and just other questions like that. So they will just need to include a lot of detail in their writing so I can see a clear sequence of events happening. So the assessment, I will take their writing and just use a rubric to grade their written narratives. So I'll just, again, look for a creative and unique story, something that has a setting, characters, and events happening throughout their narrative, and just a lot of details so I can really get inside the story. My third lesson is going to be math and art criticism. So to begin with this lesson, I will ask the students some art criticism questions. These are going to be, can you tell me what things you see in the artwork? Just name everything that you see. What colors were used in the painting? What was the focus? What story do you think the artist is trying to tell us? And how would you rate the skills of the artist? Do you think he did a good job? My math standard is draw points, lines, line segments, raise angles, and perpendicular and parallel lines. Identify these in two-dimensional figures. So my 2 objectives that I have are, 1, the student will identify sets of parallel and perpendicular lines within the artwork, and 2, the student will be able to define and label the angles within the picture. So my math lesson is going to start out with us just as a group, and the artwork is going to be up on the smartboard. And what we're going to do is we are going to be searching for different angles that we can find within the art and different sets of parallel lines and even perpendicular lines if they can find it. So I will ask students to come up and use the smartboard markers and circle angles that they see or trace over lines. And then once everyone has a grasp of what the activity is going to be, each student is going to get their own copy of the painting, and it's going to be placed inside of a sheet protector. So that way students can use a dry erase marker to circle the angles that they find and also trace over the sets of parallel lines and line segments or perpendicular lines that they find. And so then they'll have about 20 minutes to complete the activity, and they will do it individually, and then they will bring me their sheet to grade. So for the assessment, like I just had mentioned, they will bring it to me, and I'm going to be looking for 5 different angles within the artwork that they had circled, and then also at least 5 different traced lines. So it can be a set of parallel lines, or it can be just a line segment, or anything like that. So just 5 of each. And the angles that they circle should also be labeled as acute, right, or obtuse. So my last lesson in the unit is going to be science in an art project. So the introduction to students is going to be showing them the painting and asking them what they see that could connect to science. So whether it be light or weather, anything like that. So I might ask them questions that could lead them to talking about the tornado that's in the picture. And also ask them if they think that the family was expecting it because of their reaction and the faces that they have in the painting. So after the introduction to the picture, I will tell the students that we will have an art project that will be completed at the end of our lesson. So the standard for this lesson is going to be construct an explanation of how weather instruments are used in gathering weather data and making forecasts. So the weather instruments in the standard are a thermometer, a rain gauge, a barometer, wind vane, and an anemometer. So the objectives that I have listed are: 1, the student will classify the different weather instruments based on what they measure and how they measure. And number 2, the student will match the weather instruments to a given scenario that include different types of weather. My actual science lesson is going to start with a video that discusses different types of weather instruments and what they're used for and how they work. Next, the students are going to have another interactive lesson where they get up and walk around the room. I really love getting students up and walking around while they're learning. So on the walls in the classroom, there will be different pictures and names of the weather instruments that were talked about in the video. And they will have Post-it notes, and they'll go around to each of the different weather instruments and write on their Post-it note what it measures as far as what kind of weather and how it measures it. So based off of the video that they watched, they should know this information, and they'll just write it on their Post-it note and stick it on the wall next to the picture and name of the weather instrument. So for the assessment, the students are going to get a sheet that has different weather scenarios, and they will be very, very different, so the students can really see which different weather instrument is going to be used in that situation. So the students will read each scenario and write which weather instrument would be used in that condition and to measure the weather. So lastly, after the science lesson, they will have an art project. So the standard that I'm using for the art project is generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work. So the objective is the student will create a piece of art using oil pastels and charcoal that depicts a tornado and a landscape. So basically in the project, these students are going to need paper, oil pastels, and charcoal. So first they're going to be asked to draw a landscape. So it can be flat, it could have hills, whatever they want it to have. And next they will be asked to draw a tornado and kind of make that the focal point in the picture. So after they do that, they will need to add details to their artwork as far as people or animals, buildings, trees or plants, just things that add more variety to it and kind of give it a little bit more space within the artwork. So that kind of sums up my mini teaching unit, and if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask me in the comment section in the discussion, and thank you so much for watching.